Aquarius, before you analyze this, before your mind tries to label it as coincidence, notice your body first. Notice how something in you softened or maybe tightened the moment you pressed play. That reaction is the message. Because right now, your life isn't falling apart, it's quietly outgrowing something. And that creates a tension most people can't name, but you can. You've been functioning, showing up, doing what makes sense. Yet somewhere underneath, there's a feeling that doesn't leave a sense that staying the same is costing more than changing ever could. If this resonates, leave a comment with the words "I'm ready to listen." And stay with me, because what's coming next isn't advice, it's clarity about what in your life has already finished its season, and why recognizing that now changes everything. If you're hearing this now, it isn't background noise. Not because something dramatic is about to happen, but because something in you already shifted enough to pause. Most people don't pause anymore. They scroll, they multitask, they half listen while life keeps moving. But you didn't. And that alone says more about where you are than any chart ever could. Aquarius, you've always had this sensitivity, not emotional in the obvious sense, but perceptive in a way that lives beneath words. You notice when the air changes in a room before anyone speaks. You feel when a season is ending before the calendar agrees. And lately, there's been that feeling again. Not loud, just persistent. It's the sense that something familiar no longer fits the way it used to. Not wrong, just smaller than who you're becoming. You may not have named it yet. You may have told yourself it's just restlessness, or age, or stress. But your body doesn't use excuses, it uses sensation. A subtle fatigue when you return to certain conversations. A quiet resistance when you imagine staying exactly where you are. That isn't dissatisfaction, that's awareness. Aquarius energy doesn't wait for collapse to recognize truth. It registers misalignment early when things still look fine on the outside. That's both your gift and your burden, because you often sense endings while everyone else is still comfortable. And here's the part people don't talk about. Outgrowing something doesn't always come with anger or drama. Sometimes it arrives as neutrality, as silence, as a lack of emotional charge where there used to be one. Have you noticed that? That certain things no longer provoke you the way they once did. Not because you healed them, but because you're no longer meant to carry them forward. This isn't about rejecting your past. It's about recognizing that you already integrated what it came to teach you. And Aquarius, when learning is complete, staying becomes draining. Not immediately, but slowly, in ways that are easy to ignore until you can't. There's a reason this moment feels quiet instead of urgent. True transitions don't rush. They wait until you're calm enough to listen without fear. That's where you are now, in between knowing and acting. Between familiarity and possibility. Let me ask you something gently. When you imagine the next year of your life, do you feel expansion or do you feel obligation? Don't answer out loud. Just notice what your chest does. Because that response tells you more than logic ever will. Stay with me. Not because you need guidance, but because clarity unfolds differently when you allow it to meet you slowly. What comes next isn't about what to let go of. It's about understanding why your inner compass has already begun to turn and how honoring now protects you from becoming someone you were never meant to remain. And once you see that you won't be able to unsee it, there is a kind of tiredness that sleep does not touch. You may know it well by now. Not the kind that comes from doing too much, but the kind that appears even on calm days, when your schedule looks reasonable and your life, on paper, makes sense. It can feel confusing at first. You wonder why your energy dips in moments that should feel easy. Why things you once enjoyed now feel neutral or strangely distant, as if they belong to a version of you that stepped slightly out of frame. This is not boredom, and it is not a lack of gratitude. It is something more honest than that. For Aquarius, this feeling often arrives quietly. There is no dramatic event to point to, no clear problem to solve. Just a soft internal signal that something has shifted its weight, like furniture moved in the dark. The room is still the same, but your body knows where not to step. You may catch yourself losing interest in conversations that once mattered deeply. Not because you stopped caring about people, but because your inner questions have changed. What once felt meaningful now feels repetitive. What once felt urgent now feels finished. And that can create guilt. Because from the outside, things look fine, stable, functional. You may even tell yourself that this is what you wanted once, and that is true. You did want it, you needed it, and it served you well. But here is the part we rarely say out loud. Life does not only ask us to build, it also asks us to notice when we have outgrown what we built. Discomfort does not always mean something is wrong. Sometimes it means something has completed its work. Aquarius energy is especially sensitive to this moment. You are future-oriented by nature. Your nervous system leans toward what is coming, even when your mind is still standing in the present. So when the future no longer fits inside the current shape of your life, your body begins to speak first. It might speak through restlessness, through a dull pressure behind the chest, through a quiet resistance when you imagine repeating the same year again. Not panic, just a subtle no. Have you noticed that feeling? The one that shows up when you think about staying exactly as you are. The one that does not shout, but does not leave either. This is not a crisis. It is a recalibration. And recalibrations rarely announce themselves with noise. They arrive as pauses, as moments where the old motivations stop working, as questions that no longer accept surface answers. There is wisdom in this stage, even if it feels uncomfortable, because it invites honesty without force. It asks you to listen rather than react, to notice rather than fix. You are not being pushed away from your life. You are being asked to meet it more truthfully. Let me ask you something gently. When you imagine letting go of the version of yourself that learned these lessons, do you feel fear, or do you feel relief hiding underneath it? Stay here with that question. You do not need to answer it yet, because what comes next is not about change itself, but about understanding why your sense of enough has shifted, and how honoring that shift can bring you back into alignment with the quieter, steadier strength you have always carried. There is a reason this awareness reaches you before it reaches others, and it has nothing to do with being better or wiser. It has everything to do with how you are built. Aquarius, you were never designed to live on autopilot. Routine may steady you for a while, but it never satisfies you for long. Your mind and your spirit are always scanning for authenticity, for coherence, for whether something still feels real beneath the surface. You can tolerate discomfort, you can tolerate complexity. What you cannot tolerate for long is pretending. That is why you sense change early, long before anything collapses, long before people around you admit they are unhappy. You feel the subtle thinning of meaning, the moment when a role becomes performance, when a relationship becomes maintenance, when a goal keeps moving forward but no longer pulls your soul with it. Others may need evidence, a conflict, a crisis, a clear reason to leave. You do not. Your nervous system notices when something stops being alive. And once you feel that, it is impossible to unknow. This can be lonely. Because from the outside, your life may look solid, responsible, even successful. You may hear people say you are lucky, that you should be grateful, that this is just how adulthood feels. And maybe you nod. Because explaining this kind of knowing is exhausting. It does not arrive as a complaint. It arrives as a quiet internal truth that does not need permission to exist. You have outgrown things quietly before. You know this pattern. You did not burn bridges. You did not announce departures. You simply felt the internal shift and adjusted your direction when the time was right. But this time, it feels deeper, not heavier, deeper. It reaches into your sense of identity, into questions of value, into what you are no longer willing to trade your energy for. This is not about changing circumstances. It is about changing alignment. There is a certain maturity that comes with realizing that not everything that works is meant to last. Some structures are meant to hold you while you grow, not while you remain. Aquarius understands this instinctively, even when it creates discomfort. You may notice that you are less interested in convincing, less patient with surface-level conversations, less willing to shrink your truth to keep things smooth. This is not detachment. It is clarity. Let me ask you something softly. When you imagine continuing exactly as you are for the next few years, does your body relax or does something in you pull away? That reaction matters. Because it is not fear guiding you now. It is discernment. Your sign is ruled by vision, not fantasy, but foresight. You feel what is coming before it arrives. And when the future you sense no longer fits inside the present you inhabit, tension is inevitable. That tension is not asking you to act yet. It is asking you to listen. To respect the intelligence of your awareness. To trust that sensing early is not a flaw, but a form of protection. Stay here with me. Because understanding why you feel this sooner than others is the first step toward honoring it without self-doubt. And once you see how deeply this awareness is woven into who you are, you will stop questioning whether something is wrong with you and start recognizing the quiet strength that has always guided your way forward. Stay with this feeling for a moment, not to analyze it, just to notice how your body responds as we go a little deeper. There comes a quiet threshold in life where effort begins to feel different. Not purposeful, not meaningful, just heavy. You know this space, Aquarius. It is where patience quietly turns into endurance, where loyalty slowly slips into self-abandonment, without you even realizing when the shift happened. You are someone who knows how to stay. You have stayed when others walked away too soon. You have held space, offered understanding, softened your expectations, told yourself that this is what maturity looks like. And for a long time, that was true. But there is a subtle moment when holding on stops being an act of love and starts becoming an act of depletion. It does not announce itself loudly. It shows up as tired eyes in the mirror, as the feeling of bracing yourself before conversations, as a quiet calculation of how much energy something will cost before you even begin. This is not weakness. It is wisdom surfacing. There is a difference between patience and staying too long. Patience has breath in it. It allows rest. Staying too long requires constant tension, as if you are holding a structure together with your own nervous system. There is also a difference between loyalty and disappearing inside a role. True loyalty does not ask you to abandon your inner truth. It does not demand that you keep shrinking so something else can remain comfortable. Lately, you may have noticed that effort no longer feeds you, that the return on your energy feels thinner, that things only function when you push, remind, manage, stabilize, as if you are the power source keeping everything alive. This is the moment many people ignore. They call it adulthood. They call it responsibility. They tell themselves this is just how it goes. But Aquarius, your system is too honest for that kind of denial. You feel when something requires you to tense your spirit just to stay present. When continuity depends on your constant self-suppression, let me say this gently. Stability that costs you your energy is not stability. It is stagnation disguised as safety. Real stability nourishes you even when it challenges you. It does not leave you feeling hollow after doing everything right. It does not require you to disconnect from yourself to maintain peace. You may not be ready to change anything yet, and that is okay. Awareness always arrives before action, but noticing the cost matters. Because once you see it clearly, you stop blaming yourself for feeling tired, distant, or restless. Here is a quiet question to sit with. If you remove the expectation to endure, what would your body choose instead? You are not failing at commitment. You are graduating from self-sacrifice. This stage of life asks for a different kind of courage. Not the courage to stay at all costs, but the courage to honor your energy as something sacred, something finite, something worthy of protection. And as you begin to respect that truth, you will notice something subtle shift inside you. A softness returning, a clarity forming, a sense that you are not meant to force the next chapter into existence, only to stop holding yourself hostage to the last one. Breathe here. Because what is coming next does not require you to push. It only asks that you stop draining yourself trying to keep what has already finished alive. Let that last breath settle. Notice how your chest feels a little lighter now, as if something unnamed has finally been acknowledged. There is a moment after deep honesty where fear often tries to speak next. It whispers about loss, about regret, about everything that might disappear if you loosen your grip. But listen closely, Aquarius. What is happening here is not loss. It is recalibration. You have lived long enough to know that life moves in seasons, even when we pretend it should be permanent. You do not erase the winter by welcoming spring. You honor it, and then you stop asking it to keep producing warmth. What you are releasing now does not invalidate what you built. The effort you gave was real. The love, the commitment, the intelligence, the vision you poured in were never wasted. They shaped you. They refined you. They taught you how deeply you are capable of caring. But maturity brings a quieter truth. Not everything meaningful is meant to follow us forward forever. Sometimes we stop carrying something not because it failed, but because it has already done its work. You are not abandoning your past. You are placing it gently where it belongs, behind you, as a foundation rather than a destination. This is where many people panic. They confuse movement with destruction. They believe leaving means denying what once mattered. But wisdom knows better. Wisdom understands that growth is not about constant pushing. It is about alignment. About listening to where energy wants to flow naturally, instead of dragging it uphill out of habit. You may notice that when you stop forcing, nothing collapses the way fear predicted. What collapses is only the illusion that you were supposed to keep everything intact at the expense of yourself. There is relief in admitting that a future version of you needs different conditions than the past one did, that who you are becoming cannot thrive inside structures built for who you used to be. This does not make you disloyal, it makes you honest. Recalibration is subtle. It is not dramatic exits or loud declarations. It often begins with a quiet internal permission to choose what fits now. You may still grieve what changes, that is human. But grief and wisdom can coexist. You are allowed to miss something and still recognize that it no longer belongs in your next chapter. Here is a gentle question to hold for a moment. If you trusted that nothing meaningful is truly lost, what would you feel safe enough to release? Notice how that question does not rush you. It does not demand answers. It simply creates space. This phase of your life is not asking you to become harder. It is asking you to become more precise. To place your energy where it multiplies, not where it merely maintains. When you stop forcing alignment, clarity does not shout. It arrives quietly, as calm, as a deeper yes to yourself. And from that calm, new pathways begin to reveal themselves without pressure, without urgency, without fear. Stay here for a breath. Because what follows next is not about what you are letting go of, but about what becomes possible when your energy finally starts working with you again. Stay with that calm for a moment longer. The kind that does not rush you forward, but steadies you where you are. Because what happens next is not dramatic. It does not arrive with fireworks or sudden clarity. There is no moment where everything becomes obvious all at once. The choice you are approaching is quieter than you expect. It begins as a soft internal acknowledgement, almost easy to miss. A moment where you stop arguing with what you already know, where you let a truth rest inside you without needing to act on it yet. For someone like you, Aquarius, this kind of choice is unfamiliar. You are used to insight arriving fully formed. You are used to seeing the future shape before others do. But this time the shift is more subtle, more intimate. It might look like a silent no, not spoken out loud, not explained, just a boundary you stop crossing internally. Or it might feel like a yes that has no language yet. A quiet leaning toward something undefined, a sense of direction without a map, a pull that does not demand commitment, only honesty. This is where real power lives, not in bold declarations, but in private alignment. Most people think change starts when decisions are announced, when plans are made, when actions become visible. But the most powerful choices never announce themselves. They rearrange your energy first. You may notice you stop volunteering for what drains you, that you pause before responding instead of reacting, that your body hesitates where it once complied automatically. These moments are not indecision, they are intelligence. You are allowing your inner world to recalibrate before your outer life follows. And that order matters, especially now, especially at this stage of life. After 35, change does not need urgency to be real. It needs truth. It needs sustainability. It needs respect for the nervous system that has carried you this far. You are not failing to choose quickly. You are choosing wisely. There is courage in letting a decision remain unspoken until it is fully integrated inside you. In allowing yourself to live differently before explaining anything to anyone else. Ask yourself something gently. What truth have you already accepted internally that your life has not caught up to yet? Notice how that question does not demand action. It simply illuminates direction. The energy has already begun to shift, even if nothing outside has changed. You are standing differently inside yourself now. Less force, more presence. And from this quieter place, your future will not need to be chased. It will respond to you. There is a reason this path feels understated. It is built for longevity, not spectacle. For peace, not proof. As you honor these small internal movements, something else starts to happen. Your intuition sharpens. Your timing improves. Your sense of self returns to center. You are no longer preparing to leap. You are allowing yourself to turn. And that turn, slow and almost invisible, is already changing everything. Stay here with me for another breath, because the next layer is not about decisions at all, but about trust. About how life meets you once you stop needing to explain your choices even to yourself. Stay with that quiet turn you just felt. Not the kind that changes direction overnight, but the kind that reorients your inner compass so gently you only notice it later. Something begins to happen once your inside tells the truth. Not loudly, not all at once, but consistently. You may notice that procrastination loosens its grip. Not because you suddenly became disciplined, but because resistance no longer has a reason to stand guard. When you are aligned, you stop fighting yourself, and time feels less heavy. Things that once took effort to begin start unfolding with less negotiation. You are not pushing harder. You are simply not pulling in opposite directions anymore. This is where many people expect miracles, sudden breakthroughs, perfect timing, everything falling neatly into place. But alignment does not work that way. It is quieter, more mature, more reliable. What changes first is the tone of your days. The background tension softens. Your breath deepens without you trying. You stop rehearsing conversations that never happen. You respond instead of bracing. Life does not suddenly become easy. It becomes cooperative. You may be surprised by how support shows up. A conversation that lands differently than expected. An option that appears without force. A delay that turns out to be protection rather than an obstacle. These are not signs of luck. They are signs that you are no longer moving against yourself. For someone like you, Aquarius, this matters deeply. You have spent years compensating for misalignment with intelligence, with endurance, with vision, but effort can only protect you for so long. Alignment does what effort never could. When you are aligned internally, you stop leaking energy into proving, fixing, or managing outcomes. Your presence becomes steadier, your choices cleaner, your boundaries quieter but stronger. People respond differently to you then. Not because you changed who you are, but because you stopped broadcasting internal conflict. You may notice fewer arguments, less explaining, more clarity in what you accept and what you do not. Your no becomes simpler, your yes carries weight. This is not magic, it is integrity in motion. Alignment does not promise a smooth road. It promises a truthful one. And truth has a way of conserving energy instead of draining it. Ask yourself something gently. Where in your life do things feel lighter even if nothing has been resolved yet? That lightness is not accidental. It is feedback. Your nervous system recognizes when you are no longer betraying yourself. And when that happens, life stops feeling like something you must manage constantly. You are not being rewarded. You are being met by opportunities that match your pace, by people who sense your steadiness, by timing that no longer feels like it is working against you. This is why alignment protects you more than effort ever could. Because it removes you from unnecessary battles. Because it conserves your strength for what truly matters. You are not late. You are not behind. You are arriving at yourself with precision. Let that land. Because the next shift is even subtler. It is not about what changes around you, but about how deeply you begin to trust what is unfolding without needing to control it. Stay with me a little longer. There is one more layer waiting. Stay right here with that sense of trust you have been settling into. The kind that does not rush forward, but rests comfortably in the present moment. Because what meets you now is not a command. It is not an instruction. It is a quiet invitation. Life rarely asks us to change through force. It invites us through recognition. Through a soft pause where we finally notice that something inside has already completed its cycle. You may feel it as a gentle exhale, as a moment where the urgency dissolves, as the realization that you no longer need to push yourself to become someone new. Nothing is being taken from you here. No demands are being placed on your future. There is simply an opening, an invitation to stop for a breath and acknowledge what has quietly finished its work in your life. Not with drama, not with blame, just with honesty. You have carried many chapters with dignity, Aquarius. You stayed longer than most would have. You learned deeply. You evolved quietly. And now, something within you recognizes that it does not need to carry that weight forward anymore. This recognition does not ask you to act immediately. It asks you to witness, to stand gently beside yourself and allow a truth to surface without resistance. It might come as a single sentence you say internally. Simple Dorn. Something like, "This no longer needs me to hold it together. I am allowed to let this be complete." There is power in naming completion. Not because it closes doors, but because it frees your hands. So many people rush past this moment. They distract themselves. They seek noise. They look for certainty before honoring what they already know. But you are different. You have always been sensitive to thresholds, to moments that sit between endings and beginnings. You understand that meaning lives in these pauses. Let yourself be here without trying to define what comes next, without turning insight into obligation, without translating clarity into pressure. Ask yourself softly, what feels complete in me, even if nothing has changed outside yet? Notice what arises. Do not judge it. Do not negotiate with it. Just let it exist. This is not about leaving. It is not about staying. It is about allowing truth to be true without asking it to perform. The invitation does not expire. The door does not slam shut. It remains open patiently, waiting for your timing, not your urgency. You are not being tested. You are being trusted. Trusted to know when movement feels natural. Trusted to sense when stillness is the wiser choice. Trusted to honor your own rhythm after years of adapting to everyone else's. And so we arrive here. Not at a conclusion, but at a moment of quiet permission. The message arrived. You felt it. You recognized it. The door is open. Whether you move now is still your choice. Before you go anywhere, take one more breath with me. If you stayed until this moment, it says something quiet and important about you. Not curiosity, readiness. This message did not come to convince you of anything. It came to sit beside you, to reflect back what you already knew but may not have had words for yet. And if something inside you softened while listening, if you felt seen without being pushed, that's not coincidence. That is alignment recognizing itself. Aquarius, you are entering a phase where clarity no longer needs force. Where healing does not arrive as repair, but as permission. Permission to move at your own rhythm. Permission to trust what feels true even before it makes sense. There is strength in the way you pause now, in the way you listen inwardly before responding outwardly. This is not hesitation, it is discernment. As you return to your day, you do not need to do anything differently right away. Just notice what feels lighter. Notice what no longer asks you to explain yourself. Those are the quiet confirmations guiding you forward. If this message spoke to you, let me know by leaving a single word in the comments. Even just one. So others who arrive here know they are not alone. And if you feel drawn to this space, subscribe, not out of habit, but out of resonance. This channel is for Aquarius souls who are done rushing their evolution. Trust yourself. You are not behind. You are right on time. This is not the end of the conversation. It is a doorway. The journey continues. Another message is already forming, and when it arrives, you will know exactly why you were meant to hear it. Until then, stay gentle with yourself and stay connected.